cloud it there. And so a few things. Good evening, everybody. I'm Steve Leibowitz, Democratic State Committee member here in Brewster, CIDC events and fundraising person, and herder of Democratic cats. Actually, I've got my Dem shirt on tonight. You know, it's probably backwards in the screen. We're delighted to have Josh Machen, Jim Dever, Kip Diggs here tonight to talk to us about the issues that are important here on the Cape. Even though we've just come out of 4th of July, if you look at the calendar, it's less than 4 months until the general election. And there's certainly a lot of work to do for all of us up and down the ticket. So this is an opportunity for us to be able to hear from the candidates and hear where they are on important issues. I have some questions that I put together to ask. We'll also invite you to ask questions also. In order to do that, in order to keep this as smooth as possible, what I'd like folks to do is to mute yourselves in this. I'll probably start out with a couple questions in there. Please have yourself on mute. If you want to ask a question, a couple things. One, please make the question fairly succinct. Second thing, what we'd like you to do is in Zoom, if you use the participants button that's at the bottom of the screen, when that participants pane opens up, at the bottom of that is a raise hand. So what I'd like you to do is to click on that raise hand button in order to be able to ask a question that way. And we will recognize people through that raise hand piece.
Steve, can I add something? On my end, I don't have the raise hand, but on the extreme right, I have 3 little dots. And if I click on the 3 little dots, the raise hand pops up, then I can click on that. So,
okay, and what are you on that you have to click on the dots?
When I'm in the participants window,
okay,
on the right hand side, I don't have the raise hand, but I do have raise hand or merge meeting to window, it says. So I'm not sure what that means. I've never clicked on that. Oh, I just did that, and now guess what? Now I can see my raised hand. Hey, I just learned something.
Okay.
And if you're on the phone, it's *9 to raise your hand.
Yeah, I was getting there. It's *9 on the phone to raise your hand, *6 to mute or unmute yourself on the phone. I think if you're on a tablet, there's not a raise hand there, so might do a little check-in at the end in case somebody wasn't able to ask a question.
They can also type it into chat if they can't find their raised hand. They could type into chat.
And I will depend on your incredible abilities to monitor the raise hand and chat and just jump in at any point if I happen to go on too long. I will ask the candidates to be fairly succinct as well so that we can cover as much ground as possible.
Steve, you forgot the people on the phone to *6.
I did say that.
No,
I said it right after you did *9.
You did? Because there are people on the phone that still haven't muted them, so that's why.
Okay. Now I'll mention again, if you're on the phone and need to mute yourself, *6 will mute you, *6 will unmute you when you need to do that. Awesome. The candidates can be unmuted though. So by all means, Josh, Jim, and Kip, please have yourselves unmuted there. And to start out, I actually want to start out in a spot that we kind of left off in the last CIDC event that we did a couple weeks ago, our quasi annual dinner that we did online before we had to jump to Congressman Kennedy at the time. We had started to ask about the Roe Act, which is currently on Beacon Hill. And what I'd like to do is ask three candidates if you were voting now, would you be voting on the Roe Act in the affirmative? If not, what kind of issues do you have with the Roe Act that you would like to see changed as it stands right now? And I think we'll start out, Josh. Let's start out with you. We'll go Josh, Kip, and Jim on this.
Sure. Thank you very much, Steve. I appreciate it. So with respect to the Roe Act, I think I touched on it a little bit last time as well. You know, again, having access to females' reproductive medical access is extremely important. I am totally in support of, you know, reproductive rights, naturally. And this, again, is something that, in my mind, I think is antiquated, and it's an argument that, again, I'm surprised we're still discussing these things in 2020. I would always move to make sure that women's reproductive rights is part of the healthcare system, full stop, that we fund it as we fund other things in the healthcare system. If you can go in and get an appendectomy, if you need to go in and get medicine, if you need to go in and get an abortion, across the board, these things should all be streamlined. I don't see a difference between any of them. You know, and the fact that we are, you know, there's a mandate to say that a woman doesn't have a right to have control over her body, make those decisions for herself. I don't agree with that. Men can do that. We don't force men to have vasectomies, you know, but anyway. With respect to women's rights, I am 100% all in on making it affordable, accessible, and part of the healthcare system across the board.
Great. Thank you, Josh. Kip, on to you.
Yeah, I mean, it's the woman's right, and I definitely think it's her right. It should be, insurance-wise, it should be taken care of course, you know, on the right times. I mean, I don't want to talk about, you know, how late the trimesters and all that stuff. Just, yes, it's the woman's right, right? I think that's simple.
Thank you, sir. Jim Dever.
Hey, Steve. Thanks, everybody, again for having me. Well, right off the bat, I think we should all be thrilled, and I think we're somewhat surprised with the Supreme Court, how they've ruled recently. And I think we can breathe a bit sigh of relief that Judge Roberts looks as though he's coming down on our side on most of the issues, be it the Dreamers, be it abortion rights, striking down the Louisiana law, be it LBGT rights as well. So I like that. Here in Massachusetts, I think it's great that we have abortion rights secured for women. What people don't understand, the Roe Act, it's not a new act. All it does is it's updating the act from the 1980s. And I haven't heard really too much about this on the campaign trail at all. I've heard, you know, more about, you know, the maternity ward at Falmouth Hospital closing and pediatrics wards. But when I have heard about the Roe Act, the concern that is in my district is over the consent language. I don't know if people are aware that the consent language is being changed, in which currently, as it is, if you're over 18, no worries. If you're under 18, there's consent language in. It's, you know, involves if you have both parents, if one parent has been deceased or what have you. And what the Roe Act does now, the updated version takes away the consent act completely. So if you're under 18, it's your own consent. And the people that I've spoken to here, and some we have to remember is, you know, the district I'm running for is a bit more conservative than other districts. So the people I've spoken to are having some trouble with that consent language. So I think we got to find out more about that.
So if you were voting on it, does that mean?
We would vote no. We'd vote
Pardon?
no because of the consent language.
No, and Kip, you'd be,
It's
Kip and
nothing-
Josh, you'd be yes.
It's nothing with a woman's rights to choose. When we start talking about a minor's right to choose, I think that's where some of the parents in my district have some concerns.
And I would honestly say the same thing. I mean, you know, the parents need to be at least involved. I mean, it shouldn't be a secret. I mean, this is something that a girl, if it's a girl, she's going through. I mean, that's traumatic. I don't. That's kind of scary. I mean, you know, she's not an adult, and yes, she's doing an adult act, but you know, all I can say is this. I'm glad I didn't get an abortion. My daughter is 36 years old. I had a daughter at 17 years old. And she's a chemical engineer, and she's doing very well for herself. So, but I had my parents right there with me. So, you know, very, very touchy situation there with not having an adult to be able to help them out.
So in terms of the Roe Act itself, so Jim, it sounds like you would not vote for it right now. Kip, would you vote for it or not vote for it?
And underage, I'd be very apprehensive. Yes, I would say no. If she's underage and she does not have to consent with her mother or father or guardian, and she's doing it on her own, I don't think that's a good idea.
And Steve, if I could, and you know, and instead of just saying, you know, why I don't think people in the Barnstable Fifth would go for it, I just don't want to be a no person. I want to offer solutions. So one thing we have kind of kicked around, and again, not a ton of people are talking about it, but when we do get down and dive deeper, we think, okay, well, one of the concerns right now is it's in the court systems. You know, if your parent or if your guardian is available, it goes to the courts. And because it's in the courts, it's backed up. And the last thing we want is this decision being delayed. So what we've been thinking about, whereas for a criminal court, you have kind of a clerk magistrate, why can't we create something like that in the court system? So we take this decision, which, you know, probably most judges don't have the sensitivity to understand everything that goes, and I shouldn't say that, maybe they don't, maybe they do. But why not guarantee somebody making that decision on the consent part does have experience with this? Maybe is there some sort of a social worker, sort of a social magistrate we could put in place? So that's, I think, one thing I'm hearing about how to maybe solve the consent issue without just completely knocking it out completely.
So Steve, there's a comment from Amy who said, what if the father is the one who's impregnating her? It's really hard to get consent when there's been a situation where there's incest or something of that sort.
Correct. If that's questions to me, correct, 100%. That is a horrific situation. That's why we really need to make sure we can have a system in place that it brings it out of the parent's hand if there is those sort of situations, which there is. It's funny, if you do look at the consent law now, it's like 3 paragraphs. It's really tiny print. And I think back in the 80s when they did that, you know, they must have really debated a lot of these issues then as well. And they decided back then, 40 years ago, that, you know what, this could be the best way around it. Now, 40 years later, we're looking back and I think we're saying, well, wait, let's kind of update this. And one way we can definitely update that is for those issues Amy just spoke about with the consent issues. Can we put something in place that's more effective than just having young girls having to go in front of a judge, which obviously can be scary no matter what sex you are or age.
So again, just so I can clarify among the 3 candidates, the Roe Act that is in front of the legislature right now, Jim and Kip, you would be voting against it?
Correct.
Correct.
Josh?
I'm undecided right now, Steve. I'm undecided as to which way I would vote at this juncture.
Okay, thank you. Thank you all.
Yep.
There. Next question I want to ask is on the environment, something that really cuts across party lines here on Cape Cod, and is the kind of thing that that can certainly help someone gain traction in a lot of different areas. So what I'd like to ask the 3 of you is to talk about a couple of specific things you would like to see happen on Beacon Hill, if you were on Beacon Hill as a state rep, in terms of protecting us against climate change in any way. So just I want to throw that out there as, you know, name a couple options that you're particularly interested in as far as environmental issues to support. And Kip, let me start with you on this one.
Well, living on the Cape, of course, the water issue it's so important. We need to make sure that, because we have septic systems, we have, we need to make sure nitrogen's not going in there. I mean, I'm not really privy to all the ins and outs. I think I need to know a little bit more about it. But I know that having sewer will help, making sure our water systems, our drinking water is right is so key. But we really have to just make sure that we have good good information from people and make a good decision. I don't really know enough about the water part of it. I don't. So I would have to find out a little bit more information.
Thank you, Kip. Jim, let me move on to you.
Sure. I think right off the gate, something that I want to see put more focus on is how we can keep the enthusiasm we have from our young kids. I mean, the younger generation coming up right now, they are fired up about the environment more than ever. And I think we got to somehow try to harness that. So what I'd like to do and how it ties to the environment is let's get our education system in place, and it's somewhere that maybe a high school senior graduating here on the Cape can find a program over at Cape Cod Community in environmental studies. And then they can partner with, if it's the folks down at Woods Hole, if it's we just have so many different environmental agencies we can try to get kids hooked up with. So one thing from the environmental standpoint, I think we want to attack it from an educational aspect. From environmental issues themselves, beach erosion is huge. It's absolutely huge for our district. And we need to do more on that. With our with our state situation, we got to find out what's going on with the Army Corps of Engineers. There are two different partners, but right here in Sandwich, they're starting to be more responsive to our concerns with beach erosion. So we want to continue that relationship with them. And ultimately, when it comes to the environment, I think Ed Markey, who I started with, I think it was back in 1994 when the Republicans had the contract on America. They were going after the environment. And back then I was with Ed, fighting about it and ideas with it. And back then he'd be talking about the Green New Deal. And I think right now we need to harness every aspect of the Green New Deal we can from Massachusetts. And as I say to the people, the green is not just the environment, it's the green as in money. We are so blessed down here on the Cape to have access to all those natural resources we're going to need, clean natural resources, I should say. So I want to focus anywhere and everywhere we can to have our education system tied into it for our high school and colleges. And then I'll also specifically work on beach erosion down here and putting aspects of Ed's Green New Deal in place at the state level.
Thanks. And Josh, please.
Sure. So I'm going to agree with Jim here. Beach erosion's a big one. Being a representative coming from Cape Cod, going to Beacon Hill, that is a major priority. So for myself, one thing that I want to do is I want to put a moratorium on shoreline development for up to 5 years from the shoreline inland about a half mile. And then I've done a lot of research on some various methods that they're using, like living shorelines and wave actuators to help to diminish some of the impacts by virtue of some of the waves claiming some of that shoreline. So we can, if we stop development down there, we roll out some living shoreline opportunity to sort of re-inspire growth within vegetation to shore up the land, no pun intended. And then, maybe look at some of this technology that helps to break some of the waves a mile or 2 miles out, which becomes effective to claiming less shoreline. That's a big deal there as far as regrowth, and also kind of curtailing, losing that 6 inches a year we do at the shoreline. With respect to other areas of the environment, I'm totally in support of many of the initiatives included in the Green New Deal as well. Also, the wastewater issue is constantly becoming, it's tantamount, and that's something that needs to be addressed. And I feel like a lot of our legislators and a lot of the finances, the money that's been poured into the wastewater issue has gone to engineering studies. We have thrown millions and millions of dollars away at various firms, and we keep hearing about these grants that have been secured to the state, to help resolve this issue. And we're not seeing any action. This is a lot of discussion. I feel like we're sort of flushing money down the toilet. It's waste water, waste money at this point. So that really needs to be addressed, and that's going to impact, moving forward as far as development in both the residential area and in the area of commerce. So that's a real problem. So I think between those two items, and then also, looking at the greenhouse gas emissions, looking at our roadways, looking at moving over to more EVO friendly stations for vehicles, ride shares, zip bikes, zip cars, things we can do to cut down on road traffic congestion here. I mean, those are all things that we need to be addressed, specifically on the Cape.
Great. Thank you very much.
Can I interrupt for 1 second now?
Yeah.
I do agree with definitely, the kids initiative. I mean, we have, we're a peninsula, we're around water. So I definitely believe that we need to figure out ways that we're going to have the water basically help us instead of, even generate money from this water, because there's ways that we have to go, we do have to think outside the box, and we have to do something different. We can't just stay pat. So I do believe in having to go to the universities and 4 Cs and trying to come up with something that will really instill and get something coming. I don't know enough about it, but I know that we need to get more educated on this situation.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Kip. Robin, do we have anything any hands up yet?
I haven't seen any hands up, Steve.
All right. We're just going to encourage you all. If
Going on.
there's something that,
There's a lot of
pardon?
chat room regarding the ROAC, that's all.
okay. I'm going to, while people are, if people are thinking about all the questions, I'm going to do a quick follow-up on the environmental piece there, and the Green New Deal came up. And this should be a quick answer kind of thing for each of you, and I'll go Jim, Josh, and then Kip. Would you support implementing a carbon tax in Massachusetts?
Oh, yes.
Told you that was an easy one.
Oh, what tax? I did not hear you.
Carbon tax. Josh?
Yes, I support a carbon tax. Yes.
And I do too.
All in favor? Great. With that.
Steve, could you explain what a carbon tax is? I'm not being facetious. I don't think the candidates.
It's fine. It's basically taxing different industries that produce carbon and pollute things, and returning a lot of that back to consumers ultimately if those things get passed along. Is the short version of it. Unless you want to make a shorter or a longer version, Leon.
Steve, do you want another question?
Yeah, well, sure. Jump in.
There's a question in the chat. You would like to know the candidates' positions on driver's licenses for undocumented immigrants.
All right, we'll go back. We'll start with Josh again.
Sure. Well, when it comes to undocumented immigrants, I believe that, they are living within the confines of our communities. They are working, they are paying into the system. I believe that they deserve to have the ability to have a driver's license. I think that's important. We can't, especially in certain areas like the Cape, public transportation is not replete here. People do rely on their vehicles. A lot of the undocumented workers that do work on the Cape come from New Bedford, they come from Fairhaven and other places. They work a lot in the blue collar industries. Some are fortunate enough to be able to afford to live here, and they rely on those vehicles. So yes, I absolutely support granting driver's license to undocumented workers.
But I will say this about that. I mean, before they also could have been legal when Obama was in office, and now they're illegal because President Trump's in office. So it's a little bit of a change. So they had a license and they didn't have a license. That's also a little bit of, we need to find out, we need to dig a little bit deeper. I mean, yes, of course, they need to be able to have an opportunity to get a license. If they can, if they can get a license, if they have the opportunity and they can drive, I feel that they should be able to have a license.
Thank you, Kip. And Jim?
Yes, I'm 100%. And this is good. This is something that is a drastic, well, there's a host of drastic differences between myself and my Republican opponents, but this is one they always seem to want to talk about. I fully back the idea of driver's licenses without a doubt. Well, really, there's a practical reason of insurance purposes. I mean, I had a good friend of mine when he was in high school, was in an accident, went through the car windshield, and they didn't have car insurance. So that was some hefty bills that they had to go through. So from a practical standpoint and from a compassion standpoint, to me, it's a no-brainer.
Okay, Steve, Betsy Smith has her hand up.
All right.
Unmute yourself, Betsy.
Yep, unmute, Betsy.
Okay, as a follow-up to that last question, well, because it doesn't show up on my screen there. As a follow-up to that last question, there are two other immigrant-related bills right now in committee, and one of them is the Safe Communities Act, and another one is an act that would allow people who don't have a social security number to use their, can't remember what it's called, their IT something number as a way to qualify for getting different kinds of perks that taxpayers should get, so that, qualifying for unemployment insurance or qualifying for other kinds of things. Hi, Julian.
Hi.
So
So Betsy, your question?
Yeah, so I have two questions. How would they vote on those two pieces of legislation, on the Safe Communities Act? And I can't remember what the initials are. Julian, help me. But yeah, the other immigrant-related act with so that they can use an
The Family Mobility Act, yeah.
Yeah, say it again.
It's the Family Mobility Act.
No, this isn't the. Is it? I
Oh,
wasn't.
I might be out of my league. So we'll figure it out. Anyway, the answer should be clear. If you're a Democrat, you're supporting immigrant rights.
Thank you.
So let me start. Let me go Kip, Jim, and Josh on Betsy's question. And then I want to give the senator an opportunity to say hello.
I'm a Democrat, so I'm going to stick with the senator, what the senator said. I don't really know a lot about it, but I need to hear more about that act. But I would, since I don't really know much about it, and the Democrats would, I'm sticking to that, and I would say yes to it.
Jim.
Me, 100% in support. It's interesting when I started with Ed doing constituent services when he was a congressman. What you do is you each get assigned a particular area, and mine was immigration. So even when I was, I don't know, 20 years old, however old that is, 20, 21 years old, even back then, you could just tell how unfair the system was, and you heard these stories. And they move you then, and they still move me now. So without a doubt, I think we should make at least the Barnstable Fifth, as far as I can control it, safe and an open place for immigrants.
And Josh.
Yes, absolutely, wholeheartedly. Again, immigrants' rights, extremely important. Protections, extremely important. And again, coming from Cape Cod, living here on the Cape, the backbone of our communities, of our hospitality industry, immigrants are every much a part of it, and we are all immigrants ourselves. So again, I absolutely support, immigrants' rights, 100%.
Thank you. And a welcome to Senator Sear. I think I speak for everybody that we're glad to see you and especially see you healthy.
Well, I'm not that healthy because I ended up getting a, I don't know, I like this never happens to me. I never get ear infections. And then foolishly must have jumped in the water some odd way on Sunday. And so now I have like an ear infection, which is the first time I had an ear infection my entire life. So I apologize. I sound kind of like congested and weird. But I'm not, as it relates to COVID-19, there was a lot of press about this apparently. But I had symptoms in mid-March. I fortunately was quarantining at the time. None of my family got sick. None of my colleagues or any of the people I was around got sick either. I'm just a small group of folks in my friend circle here on the Outer Cape. So anyway, I appreciate the concern. Though it's amazing how many people messaged me and were like, "Are you okay? Are you on like death's door?" And I'm like, "No, read the article." You know, that was a few months ago, but certainly appreciate the concern.
Yeah, I was just going to add, you know, we've started to have a chance to chat with our candidates, and we've covered things like the Roe Act and environmental issues, and you caught the end of the piece on the Communities Act, et cetera. So with the legislature in full tilt from now till the end of July at least, we're happy that you took a couple minutes to come in with us.
Sure, thank you, Steve. Go ahead.
I was going to say, once we're ready to go on, Sue Truitt has her hand up.
Great. Susan, please unmute yourself.
Okay, here I am. I wanted to ask Josh and Kip, both of whom have incumbents that have proven hard to beat. What is their main line of attack? Do they have several particular issues that stand out? You know, an elevator speech on how you'd go after each of your very successful opponents. Successful in the sense, they're there.
Well, and you know what? I'm gonna ask Jim to answer that also, because he's in a very red district and has a Republican opponent that he'll need to address issues on also. So I'm going to invite all three of them to respond to that. And let's start with Jim this time.
There we go. Now we're back.
There, Jim. There you go. You're muted.
Now we're okay?
Yep, now you're good.
Hands up. All right, now we want to, so the question is, how exactly do we flip this seat for the first time in 20 years? Well, number one, we ride the blue wave that Sue Moran set out for us back in the special elections, and Carol Doherty did down in Taunton. How we're going to be able to win this is because it's going to come down to trust and judgment. And I'm the only one out of the three of us that have any sort of trust and judgment. We got the judgment that we've got the support of both our mass nurses, our mass teachers, and our AFL-CIO. And what we're going to show people is, in this day and age, how you get stuff done on Beacon Hill is you have to be able to negotiate and work with people. My candidates on the other side, no matter who comes out of that bracket, they're both far-right Trump guys, and that is going to get nothing done for the people in Barnstable 5th. Now, for years, we've kind of hammered home the idea, why we keep sending up somebody there who's a Republican? We're not going to get anything back. But what has happened is we've had entrenched Republicans in there. And once you're entrenched, it's tough to get out. This is an open seat. So there's a perfect opening for us. We're also going to be able to establish my 6 years on the school committee. I just finished up my second term there. And we were able to work together to really turn around our schools in the right direction. So the same people we tapped in to do that, we're going to tap into again. And I think that's for the first time that I've known this district, I think we really have a campaign that can speak to voters on both sides of the aisle. And that's what you're going to have to do to win this one. The Barnstable 5th is not, you know, it's not Cambridge. It's a unique place, very red, and one of the oldest districts as well. So we need to play it smart. But if we do, we can without a doubt flip this seat blue. No question.
Josh.
Sure. Well, my opponent, yes, he's been in there a few terms. He's well-liked. He's popular. Steve knows this very well, too, from 2018. but the issue is, you know, I feel like the seat hasn't been represented properly since Cleon Turner occupied it. And, you know, the fact of the matter is we are in a democratic state. There are 18 Democrats in the House, or excuse me, 18 Republicans, I apologize, walk back on that, in the House. So out of the Republicans that have actually accomplished anything pushing legislation through, my opponent is not one of them. He has been unsuccessful. He's had 3 terms to get his agenda in there, to get things done. And he sort of played his one-note law and order legislative agenda. It doesn't serve the people of the First Barnstable District well. We have issues within our education system. We have environmental issues here. We've got issues with infrastructure that haven't been addressed. And, you know, my opponent seems to have his eyes set on, you know, bigger things. I know he's got interest in taking over Jim Cummings' position as the county sheriff. I feel like this is just sort of a stepping stone for other things that he wants to do. And so for us, for being a resident in the First Barnstable District, for other people in this community, they all need to be represented, not just one branch of this community. So it's important that we give everybody in the community a voice. I feel like there's only one voice being heard through my opponent. So I'm going to work tirelessly to represent everybody here. And the beauty of my district is, unlike Jim's is, it's not exclusively red. We have a purple district here. So we have a lot of independents. And the beauty of that is they're very open-minded. And people are willing to vote for the best candidate. And, you know, Tim Whalen is a popular guy. And Steve, as you know this, you did fairly well back in 2018 facing Mr. Whalen. So I feel like we can sort of build on that momentum that we have from 2018 going into 2020 and wanting to see a seismic shift here in a presidential election, and we can flip this seat blue. And I know we can do this together.
Thank you, Josh. Kip, how are you going to win?
How I'm going to win? First of all, thank you. This is a great question. I'm really new to the scene, and being that I'm very passionate, and being new and being passionate, there's something that is unique about this. I care about everybody, and it's not about me, it's about we. And I care about, so I'm gonna go if I have to knock on doors, whatever I have to do, I'm willing to do. I started boxing at age 22 years old, and I became a world champion. So I've owned a small business for 15 years, and I was successful. But so I know what to own a small business is like. So I'm willing to go in the trenches. And to be honest with you, the incumbent hasn't done anything. I mean, we have the COVID going on, we have the Black Lives Matter going on, and we haven't heard anything from him. He's not a leader. Is being a leader, and that's what I'm about, is being a leader, and I'm willing to listen. So I have to listen to what people have to say, and then we're gonna have to go out there and just execute. And I have the discipline and the hunger and the love to go ahead and do that. So that's what I'm about.
Great. Thank you. I'm going to follow up a bit on Sue's question, something I had written down, because right now we're dealing with campaigning in the age of COVID. Kib, you talked about knocking on doors. We don't know if that's going to happen. So what I want to ask all of you is, in terms of your campaign plans, as we are right now with COVID, can you talk some about what you're going to be doing different, how you're going to reach out to voters, and what your get out the vote plan is going to be, because we now have very much different rules as far as the elections are going to go with that. So if you can get into some of the nitty gritty as to how you're going to go about campaigning, I'd like to hear that. And I think we're starting with Josh on this one.
Sure. Thank you, Steve. So,
Thank you.
So yeah, you know, the back sort of the strength of our campaign, and you know, especially last time is door knocking, canvassing, and that's the most important thing, because it gives us as the candidates an opportunity to reach the voter one-on-one, give them time to ask a question, to meet us in person. I don't personally like sending a volunteer to a door blindly without the person knowing who I am. I'd rather have that volunteer knock and then, maybe drop something off, say Josh will drop back by or so on and so forth. I want to make sure that I meet everyone in the community that I'm going to be representing. So this has created a unique challenge, and obviously we're sort of in unorthodox campaigning territory this year. We had a wonderful canvassing playbook put together by my field manager, which has now been sort of translated over into the digital format. So we are using, direct mailers. Obviously, phone banking is going to be huge for us this year. Text messaging is going to be big. I'm also going to be rolling out weekly newsletters. I'm going to be doing little videos. I'm going to be answering questions. I want to do some digital town halls as we get closer, to the general area. So I just want to make myself as available as possible to reach the voters, to get my name out there and to be able to answer and interact with them as much as possible to get those questions answered ahead of the election. So,
Great. Thank you. Kip, talk to us about how you're going to campaign these days.
Phone, texting, emails, Facebook, Instagram, but also, I'm going to be putting mailers out and putting things in people's doors, because and I'm going to let people know where I am. So if they do want to come out and see where I am, they can come. I mean, see, we have to be careful, and yes, I do agree that with this COVID, we have to keep our distance, but there's still ways to talk to people, and if you knock on a door and you stay away from them, they're going to let you know, hey, it's okay or it's not okay. And I'm going to be okay with that. I'm going to respect their wishes, and I'm going to stay away. I'm going to have my mask on, and I'm going to respect everybody. But I care for everybody, so it still has to be done because, something, this is that important. And we can't just, we have to, abide by the rules, but I also have to just be careful and let everybody know that I care.
And Jim? Jim, are you muted again?
Yes, he is.
I'm back. All right. Sorry about that, gang. No, I was saying that this is a great question and timely. Myself and Gus Bickford, who's the chair of our party, we were talking today about this, and I was asking just those exact same questions. What are some good ideas beyond the phone banking, obviously, and whatnot? And one thing he's hearing some people had some success with is first doing a robocall saying you're going to be out there on a weekend, and then maybe follow up, not so much the knock, but follow up maybe with the leaf drop and just be seen in the neighborhood, because sometimes you're going to find people on their front yards. So it gives you a chance to maybe engage in a conversation, kind of a, still kind of a safe way. But no, as Josh and Kip said, without a doubt, it's going to be phone banking. That's big. It's going to be things like that. It's going to be expensive, which is why I'm glad we're having something like this to hopefully drum up some interest and some money. The number one thing we all want to do is just talk and get the message out. This past Saturday on 4th of July, had a great chance, Josh was there as well, to speak at the Power to the Polls rally, kind of a minority voter drive on the Hyannis Green. And to have the audience in front of you and be able to speak, it is, as we all know, we love doing it. It's going to be harder to have that forum this time around. So that's why we got to be smart with how we get the message out. And that's why we are going to need dollars to support mailers, phone bankings, and if we do get creative with a robocall and then a door knock, we got to be able to support those as well.
I'll do a quick.
Steve, I have two people waiting with their hands up.
Okay, I will hold on that follow up. So, all right, let's get our hands up, people.
I had a follow up to that.
Leon, somebody's ahead of you.
I know, but I wanted to follow up on the question that the guys were just talking about.
And so do I.
I will. I'll wait.
Anna's been patiently waiting. Anna's had her hand up for probably 15 minutes. So Anna, you're on now.
And unmute yourself.
Unmute yourself, Anna. Anna, are you still there? Okay, she's typed it in. Oh, she doesn't have a mic, she said. She's
Okay.
typed the question into the box. It says she has a follow-up question for Kip regarding something that we were talking about earlier. And she said he gave an interview with Pat Desmarais where he didn't support driver's licenses for undocumented immigrants. And that's what they shouldn't be called illegals. They should be called undocumented immigrants. And so she has a follow-up question for Kip on that, because has he changed his mind since he talked on the Pat Desmarais show?
I guess I didn't understand the question, because I honestly thought, like I said, when it was illegal. But again, that's why I said to you, the person could have been legal, first of all, beforehand when Obama was in office. He had one rule. Now with Trump changing it, he could have been legal, and so yes, I do believe that they should be able to get a license. Everybody should be able to get a license if you have that opportunity to, for sure. So I must not have understood the question on Pat's show.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for asking, Anna. And we have another hand.
Now we have Leon.
Yeah, I was going to suggest to the candidates, because I think I'd do it too.
A question, please.
Well, they were talking, the question was, they were talking about how they were going to get their messages out, and they were talking about mailing. My question is, don't you think having somebody, one of your friends or whatever, get 25 people together on Zoom calls and start Zooming your whole district so you can actually drill down and eliminate needing to go knock on the door? This would give you an opportunity then to be able to reach 25 people at a time, and then another 25 and 25, and it'll mushroom across the district, because that's what I'm going to do.
You know,
That's a great
to
idea.
your point, Leon, and that's a great point. Gus had mentioned as well, not so much Zoom, but he thought Facebook Live was a good tool as well. And that maybe the idea is you found your host home to do it from, then you're at that host home with the family, open it up to Facebook Live to maybe their friends. And once that's on there, again, I gotta get much more knowledgeable on this, but he was saying once that's there, then people can always tap back into it and go back to your earlier Facebook Live chat. So yeah, no, without a doubt, we've got to we have to take advantage of that.
Josh, Kip, anything to add on that?
Nothing
No,
further. No, just that I thought that was a good idea. So that's it.
Steve, Betsy has her hand up again.
Go ahead, Betsy. Unmute yourself if you need to.
I don't use social media. And so, I mean, here I am on Zoom, but I don't use Facebook or Instagram or any of the others. And I'm wondering, in your districts, are there more old people like me, or are there more young people like you, the candidates? And what I'm wondering, have you thought about getting people together to write letters to the editor in your favor, or writing a My View in your favor? Because even though I don't like the new leadership at the Cape Cod Times, I still read the Cape Cod Times, and I still write letters to the editor to them.
Okay, do we have any questions?
Well, my question is, do they think that print media might be another way to reach people?
I'll jump in on that. Yeah. So with respect to excuse me, the My Views and the op-eds, excuse me, those are still critically important. They do still reach an audience. There are still people out there who read the paper and who read those articles. I do get the Cape Cod Times in digital format. I don't get it in the paper format, but the other wonderful thing about those op-eds and My Views are, especially from a candidate standpoint, I'll just pitch this in quickly, is it also allows us as candidates to sort of get a pulse on what people are thinking about in the district and across the Cape, because what is published and what is promoted or reported isn't necessarily what people's concerns are. So I think that those can be critically important and useful. So yes, I would definitely employ supporters to write on our behalf of the campaign. Totally.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm sure we're going to use the paper too. I mean, I think it's all hands on deck, basically, all by all means necessary. I mean, we gotta spend money to get our name and our word out there, and our. So yes, I'm willing to do. I have to do whatever it takes. I'm a fighter, so and again, it's about getting to everybody, and I have a mother that's 89 years old, and she's right behind me. So, I have to, and I got a lot of buddies of mine, some parents that are still living. So yeah, I got to reach them.
Jim.
Yes, and that's a great point. I forgot to put that in there, writing the letters to the editor. It's to my parents who live over in West Yarmouth. My dad's 84 and my mom just turned 80. And so another idea my dad's been all over me about, and I did contact them today, was what do folks think about the radio station, like Coffee FM for like a 30-second spot or something like that. So I've looked into that. I've looked into advertisements with the Sandwich Enterprise and the Bourne Enterprise, and with letters to the editor. I'm just trying to find out, obviously in best case world, you have people address the Cape Cod Times and your local paper, but I wasn't sure if one is more effective than other, and I would defer to you folks on that. If you get more input from it in the Cape Cod Times, or does the local paper have more sway to it if there's a letter to the editor, or does it not matter?
Let me do a
Exactly, both.
yeah.
Okay.
Let me do a quick follow up, since we're still talking about campaigning things, and all of you have mentioned things like phone banking and texting and direct mail, radio advertising, print advertising, very expensive endeavors. So what I'd like is for you all to talk about your, have you done some budgeting on this and what your fundraising plans look like? And I think we'll start with Kip on this one.
I'm in a tough situation that I can't talk about that because I work for the town of Barnstable. So I have to be very, very careful when it comes to that. But I do have a great camp. What's beautiful is I have Demetrius Atlas, and he was a former state rep, so he was in this seat. So I'm kind of learning as I go with him, and he's talking to me about things. But he's helping me with he's taking care of the fundraisers, and really his brother Nick is my campaign manager, so he's the one that's doing that. So I can't talk about finances, and I got to be very careful. So I'm really just working on getting to the people.
Gotcha. Jim.
Yes, fundraising. Well, right now, I think we've raised maybe just north of $20,000. Had a good weekend as well, just really going through some of my own contacts and whatnot. The Markey folks, friends, family, did things of that nature. The endorsements, we expect those to bring in some money as well from both those groups. As I said, mass teachers, mass nurses, AFL-CIO. We also have other endorsements that we hope to be coming in as well. Obviously, the biggest endorsement is Election Day, but in a race such as this, when you really can't be going door to door, I think those endorsements do carry some sway, and they do have a financial value to them. And otherwise, fundraising wise, really things like this are a good way to raise money. And we hope to, keep getting creative with ideas to raise money. That's without a doubt going to be a big thing for this race, as you just mentioned, really for everybody.
And Josh.
So, the stark reality is that these are expensive to run for these seats. This is how our system's set up, and unfortunately, we don't have a public, donation system set up for politics, which I believe we should have. So the field is not fair. It's what you make of it. So, I'm realistically going to have to raise about $50,000 to run, in a more than adequate campaign to win this seat, to really challenge it, to obviously pay for some of these investments, to get our name out there and to engage more. And through doing that, obviously, yes, personal contacts, friends, family, But, you know, reaching out to voters and explaining to them what our message is and explaining to them exactly why we want this seat and why we're better, you know, to serve them than the current occupant of that seat is going to be huge. That's why, you know, unfortunately with you know, door knocking sort of being relegated down to just phone banking exclusively and digital at this point for safety measures, it becomes more of a challenge. But that is on us. I mean, the one who raises the most money is the candidate. It's not someone on the candidate's behalf. It's not a volunteer. It's not family or friends. It's the candidate themselves. So it's our duty to, you know, perform that outreach, to be strong and to get our message across the people and inform them as to what our policies and platforms are and explain why we are the best candidate and why we are an investment for them, because that's what we are. And the hope is that we become blue chip stocks for the community. You're making a donation, a nominal contribution or a large contribution to us. Whatever it may be, it's an investment, and we want to give you a return on investment. And that's based on what we represent and what we're looking to do for the community. So it's beset on us as the candidate. And, you know we have steep hills to climb. We know that this is a challenge moving forward in the COVID era, but it can be done, and I feel like it will be done.
So
Any hands up, Robin?
we have Carlos. Carlos has his hand up.
Carlos?
Unmute yourself.
Oh, yes. With the COVID-19 situation right now, all the small business in the Cape has been dying. So if you guys be elect, what can you do to help those businesses survive? Because this is going to continue for a long time, I'm pretty sure.
All right, Jim, you're up first.
Yeah, obviously that's the question on everybody's mind. This goes back to when I ran for school committee back in 2014. I think there are two things that make a town go. Really, our schools and our small business. If you do those right, then you should be able to have enough resources to provide for your seniors and provide for a nicer community. So for our small business, I've been speaking to my cousin Denise a lot. She's the head of the Chamber of Commerce here in Sandwich. And something that she's mentioned and really makes perfect sense to me is we're going to need help with loan relief. And by loan relief, I'm for the landlord relief and that sort of thing, and rent relief. Shouldn't have said loan relief. We're getting that from the federal government. But at the state level, we can come in and help out and make sure that both the tenants and the landlord are going to be able to figure this out. That's going to be a huge issue going forward. And as for, to expand on it a bit more with small business, I understand small business is hurting, but, I, as a Democrat, I think the governor's done a great job. I think Julian Sayre being part of our reopening committee, whatever you want to call it officially, I think they've done a bang-up job. I really do. It's a tough place that they're in. And something that I try to remind people is, the governor and these officials, they're just not the governor of small business. They're just not the governor of Facebook. They're the governor of the Commonwealth. And you really got to weigh all those factors together. So I do think they've done a good job. It's painful, but hopefully we'll be able to get through it.
Okay. And Josh, the question is on COVID relief and small business.
Sure. Well, I mean, this is an eye-opening expose on what I keep talking about with respect to my platform as to how we need some relief, some independence with our own economy here on Cape Cod, taking advantage of resources here, being able to generate more income through again, the construction of a school and putting some tolls on the bridge once we fulfill that acquisition. More taxation on investment properties, taking some of that money and reappropriating that to small businesses and to people, to the education department, to infrastructure. What I'm interested in doing is putting a loan relief program together for people. I mean, this is outside of COVID, but small business owners that make good on their payments for 3 years. If you've taken out a loan for $250,000, we as Cape Codders will, with this particular fund, will go in and pay that off completely, whatever the balance is left on that, so that you can then take that money that you've accrued and reinvest that in expanding your business and moving it forward. So now your small business becomes a larger business, and everybody wins there. So these are just some programs that, looking to institute moving forward. With respect to the emergency relief funds, obviously, yeah, I want to see the federal government, unfortunately, we're living in an age where oversight doesn't exist anymore. So the PPP programs that are supposed to go to businesses that you're talking about, they end up at the Outback Steakhouse or somewhere else, Ruth Chris, which is abhorrent, and that should never happen. But that is taking place right now. So, while I do have many relationships with small businesses and people in the community here that run small businesses, and they've been successful through the COOP and in Cape Cod 5 and acquiring some of these relief funds. Again, I know that some of our delegation here, Julian's on tonight, and I'll give a shout out to him too, with respect to the reopening task force and some of the jobs they have done to try to ensure that some of these funds are reappropriated to areas to help these people and relieve them. Definitely more has to be done through the state, and more has to be done through the feds. I mean, that's long and short of it. But I think long term, we need to look at how we can build and maintain a sustainable economy here that generates revenue for the 250,000 people that live on Cape Cod, and not just be serving to the people who come here in the summertime. This to them, for us to live here is a right, for them to come here is a privilege, and it needs to be treated that way.
And Kip, economic relief in the age of COVID for small business.
Great question. We definitely have to have relief, and we have to reappropriate money. We spend a lot. Cape Cod, we generate a lot of money. There's a lot of money here, and it goes back over the bridge. We need to keep some of our money right here. We have to think outside of the box, and places even should be able to stay. They want to even keep places open till 1 o'clock. We may need to do something different, open things up longer. Small businesses, like I said, reappropriate things. We have to help each other, and think smaller instead of and hold on to what we do have, because honestly it's gonna get worse before it gets better. So reappropriating and relieving, we need some help here, and we're gonna have to get some money coming this way.
All right, a couple things that I want to cover, and then we'll see if there's any other questions. Yesterday, the Massachusetts Senate released a comprehensive bill on police reform. I hope you've all had a chance to take a look at that. The Senate plans on voting on it Thursday and sending it to the House. I wonder if you could speak to the bill if you've taken a look at it, or in lieu of that, talk in general about the types of reforms that we need to see, because people are talking about a lot of different issues as far as reforms that need to happen at the administrative level, at the union level, whether issues of demilitarizing the police, issues of whether we need to defund the police. So it's certainly very much a hot button issue right now. And I think, Josh, we are starting with you on that.
So, we touched on this a little bit a couple weeks ago. Police reform is obviously a big issue. It's something that has been an issue for a while, but now, again, we've held the magnifying glass up to it because we have smartphones, we have video cameras, and we can now see what goes on when people deny it, and those protections are no longer there because we have the video footage and photos. So anyway, with respect to that, yes, something has to be done. I did get a chance to look at some of the stuff that was in the Senate's reform bill, and I'm very pleased with it. I spoke to sort of the culture of the police system and diversity within the police department. And I think that is extremely important. Having various, minorities serving in leadership roles is very important. That can connect with the community so that, again, our community and our law enforcement officials should be one and the same into how they look and how to communicate with each other. Community policing, advocacy, I think, retraining. I do like sort of rescinding from facial recognition, government surveillance, and obviously violent tactics and things that police have been able to get away with. Getting rid of qualified immunity is extremely important so that civilians have the ability to sue and to go after police that abuse their power and mistreat the system. Those are all important things. So yes, I'm in favor of the current legislation that is on the docket. And I think that this is just something, it's a foundational piece of legislation. I think that it's something we're going to build off of as we continue to reimagine. I don't think that, you know, defunding police means something different to everybody. We still do need a law enforcement, group, essentially. We do need people to call. We still need people to enforce the laws. What that looks like, I'm not sure. It goes from a department to department basis. Small towns, the metropolitan areas could be very different, again, because some may not have the cultural issues that other places have. So we have to look at the demographics. I think having sort of a system of checks and balances where we keep track of who gets fired to who gets hired, where they go, they shouldn't be able to abuse the system and then get rehired at another department up the street. So there are a lot of things, to unpack here with this. But I think that in respect to the bill that's currently on the table, this is a fantastic starting off point. And I think that it's something that's going to continue to evolve as we move forward and continue to have this discussion.
Okay, Kip.
I don't believe that we need to defund the police officers, the police, not at least not on the Cape. I believe that there should be a lot more training. I believe that there should be a lot more faces that look like everybody. We need to make sure that in hiring, we need to hire. We need to be more vigilant on making sure we hire what that looks like everybody else, so that you're not worried about being pulled over. The violent tactics, yes, there has to be no physicalness. If you have to get physical, there's a reason why, and you have to be precise. But then again, you have to know when to let go and when stun them, whatever you have to do. But it has to be done with proper training. So the proper training is so important, especially if a police officer has been in office for 15 years. Hey, you may need to get a little bit more education to some things that he wasn't used to. So that would definitely make sense. Of course, chasing, automobile chases, shooting of guns, they are professionals with having a gun in their hand. So, we need to make sure that we can't have those, it's not the wild, wild west anymore. We have to have it done correctly. So I think it's really being educated, and that's what really has to happen. Be educated, but we can't defund our police either.
All right. Jim.
Thank you for the question. I'm not sure what the final version is, but this is where I kind of have a unique role. As everybody knows, I'm an attorney for unions. One unions I represent is police unions, and I represent the Sandwich Police, Dennis. Used to represent Yarmouth, no longer, and we represent UMass Dartmouth, the campus police down there. So what has been good this week is to watch this develop over the last couple of weeks, is to watch this develop and be able to have, in a way, input on what the bill would be. I mean, we have our lobbyists for our police up there, and that they were talking to the governor and the players, and then they'd spill it down to us at the attorney level and see, how does this look legally and what are you hearing on the ground? So I think everybody supports the bill that's coming out of the Senate. I do. I think you're going to find police unions support that as well. I think everybody realizes that something has to change. We need to do something about folks' interactions with police. There's just the color of one's skin should not be the difference between yes or no, be the difference between show us your hands or maybe we show you your way home. It's too important of an interaction to not take seriously. So I'm glad this week was a first step, and hopefully I can help in a small way, continue to be a conduit between our local police here on the Cape, our constituencies, and hopefully the folks up on Beacon Hill.
All right, I'm going to ask one more thing, and then if anybody else has hands up, we'll
Has his hand up.
take those. I'm sorry?
Leon has his hand up.
Okay, let me ask one more, and then Leon will get to you on that. again, it's kind of a COVID-related question. The House and Senate will be working on the next fiscal year budget this month. And we're dealing with a significant shortage in revenue from what we expected. And there's going to have to be cuts that are made or new revenue found somewhere. It's said that, a budget document is a statement of values. So what I'd like you to talk about some is what you expect to see out of this upcoming budget. It's the kind of issue that's going to affect the state this year and probably next year also if you're in office. So what are your priorities going to be, and where are some places that we may need to cut back some? And Kip, I think you're first on this one.
What are we going to cut back on? It's a great question.
That's why they pay me the big money.
It's a great question. What are we going to cut back on? I know what we can't cut back on. I'll tell you that. I mean, I'm not sure what we're going to. Let me go there. I think that our seniors, we have to protect our seniors, and we have to be really vigilant on. I mean, they're, that's our mothers. We need to really protect them and make sure that if they're in, some of them are in assisted living and all that. I mean, that's just, not being able to see them, being lonely. We can't do that. We have to make sure that we take care of home. We have to be very vigilant on making sure that we try to keep everybody as safe as possible. And that's what I really respected about how Massachusetts has taken care of each other. I think we have to think safety first on everything. And we have to, because we're not going to be making, quote, quote, the money's not going to be coming in, maybe we need to, make sure that everyone's being fed. And if that means that, the neighborhood's going to take care of, hey, I'm going to cook this week, it could get that crazy, but we need to think kind of outside the box, and we have to protect everybody, not just one. I think that really is my main objective, is to make sure that we're safe.
Great. Thank you, Kip. Jim?
Yeah, I know one area we cannot cut, and one area we're going to have to focus on and just find the money is when it comes to mental health aspects that this COVID-19 is going to have on folks. It's going to have an effect across the board. Even before COVID-19, and we've done tremendous work on mental health. And again, thank you, Julian. But even before this, when it comes to our seniors, we can build these great community senior centers and whatnot, but it's getting the seniors there, or our older residents there, that can be the hardest thing. I know firsthand in my own home. So we really need to dive down, go deeper, and really try to help out these folks who are older and help them with, help them maybe figure out these issues. I think as to where we can cutting will be tough. One place I've always thought we can save money, and again, it comes from my work. For the last 20 years, I've been a labor lawyer representing workers against the management of the Commonwealth. Needless to say, I've seen up here firsthand management of the Commonwealth not succeeding. And I'll give you a quick example, then I'll move on. Earlier, or actually it would have been last year, I had 2 arbitration cases for employers that were terminated. They had been out for 2 years. One individual, we had their job back after 2 hours of questioning. The point being, this person should have never lost their job to begin with. It was such wasted resources, not only to carry on this arbitration, but then you have back pay you have to think about. Then you have insurance, by unemployment insurance you have to think about. And the second person, same thing, we got them right back to work. You might say, well, geez, Jim, that's 2 people. How is that going to help? Well, every single agency in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts has a Department of Labor Relations. And I think I'm uniquely positioned to really delve down deep in there and get rid of the fraud, waste, and abuse. There's too much of it, and we need to make sure it stops. So I don't know where we can cut, but I certainly know where we can find some money, and that's where I would look.
And Josh.
Well, this is another. This might be one of the most challenging questions because what do you cut? These are kind of life and death decisions, right? Where do we reappropriate some of the money that we have to spend? Obviously, their tax revenues are down because unemployment is up, and we've got pensions. We still have bills as a state. And we have to keep our public services afloat. We have to keep our education system afloat. To Jim's point, we have to have, mental health professionals. Our medical system is one of the most important things right now during a pandemic. So, I know that the Federal Reserve does have a lending program for states right now. It could be something that might behoove us, something for us to look into. To borrow, I know that typically speaking, we have a reasonable surplus and a pretty fit rainy day fund here in Massachusetts. I don't know what the numbers look like currently, but I think where you'd have to look at cuts is probably in the bureaucratic area of probably engineering studies and programs that we're employing to do work for the state with respect to projects, or like I said earlier, with wastewater and other things like that. Those things may have to be put on the back burner in favor of services that help the public, that help keep people in their homes, that help keep people employed or paid through unemployment. But I don't have a clear-cut answer as to what areas I would cut at this juncture, and that's something that I would have to look at. I'd really have to do some digging into the budget to see where those cuts would be made, and it would have to be done with a scalpel and microscopically, because that's the great challenge, I think, is how do we move the money around.
And so Leon, you had your hand up?
Yes, I had my hand up, Steve, and it's funny, you asked the question one way, I'm going to ask it a different way.
Okay.
And I would like to comment on the police issue, because having been there, I know that. And the issue in training needs to be revisited and addressed, because they're taught in the academy on how to mistreat each other before they even get out of the academy. Their main objective in the academy is for them to have respect from the citizen. And to do that, each person who goes through the police academy is broken down until they cry, and then they start putting them back together again. So they're taught in the academy how to harass people to be able to get the respect that they're looking for. That needs to change. I've been involved with police when I was at MCAD, or State Office of Affirmative Action, and I've been to the academies, I've seen what they do to people. That's what needs to change. And the academy, once that happens, police will work fine. Now, my question. The question Steve asked was, how are you going to cut? My question was, how are you going to raise more taxes? Where would you think of raising taxes or raising money in the Commonwealth? Because I'm going to have to look at that going forward. I know Josh mentioned a toll bridge and somebody else did something else, but give us an idea of the places that you think that we could raise revenue for the Commonwealth.
Thanks, Leon. I've made that as an option also, so we'll revisit that starting with Jim.
Yes, and first, Leon, to your point you were making about the police academies, thank you. Spot on. Those are exactly the type of things that we need to be doing. Changes that, changes such as that, changes that we can institute from the top down. I think that's great. The question was, again, what was the question? Where we...
On money.
Where could you what could you do to raise money for the Commonwealth?
Yeah, that's probably why I was having such a tough time, because where can we do to raise money through new taxes? I don't know, man. That's tough. That's tough. People are going to be tapped out right now in the COVID time. I think I know it might not be, a bright lights kind of thing, but I still think the best way to do it is try to cut there at the admin level. I really think you can find some money there. I don't know where the appetite is for new taxes or right now for families. I just don't know where that is. I guess I'd want to listen to some more folks out there and see what ideas they have to generate.
Josh,
Higher taxes on the wealthy.
Well, thank you, Fred. I was actually just going to jump in on that. I was going to say, yeah, it's time to raise personal income taxes on the 1%. That's where I would start. Absolutely.
Well, I mean, that's already on the, I mean, don't we have the income?
Yeah, I mean, but, you know, with outside of that, like get rid of the flat tax. And yeah, we need more of a systematic approach that benefits everybody. And that's where I would start. Beyond that, I'm not sure. I don't know. Again, because the budget is in such in flux. It's in a position right now that we weren't in, 3-4 months ago, and it continues to go on a downward trend. So we're all swimming in red ink as it stands right now, all 50 states. But with respect to the Commonwealth, again, that's something would have to be looked at. Where do we make the cuts and where do we make the raises? I would have to research that a little bit more.
I'm going to say this. Yes, we are hurting, but there's a lot of businesses right now that are making a killing. I mean, BJ's to Stop and Shops. I mean, they were out of toilet paper. I mean, are you kidding me? I mean, there are places that are really booming, and we need to think outside the box for a little bit, because the ones that are really making money, whoa, we need you to help us. I mean, really, I mean, it's that simple. I mean, it's not, I shouldn't say it's that simple. It's not simple. It does hurt, but it's I don't like seeing anybody lacking. And there's people that are eating, because the school systems are closed. Our kids could be maybe eating one meal a day because of they're only able to get that, they are getting the meals on wheels or whatever, how they're getting. This is the type of stuff that we need to pay attention to and be able to help our neighbors. I mean, this is passion, this is love, this is what we have to have. And somebody, if I was a kind of the strong man, then I'm gonna help pick up something. So, if I'm financially secure, then I'm gonna be able to do something like this, and you should want to, because that's what we are Americans. We have to be supportive. You know what I mean? And I hope you hear my passion, and listen, I didn't come from money. I come from hard work and hard work and keep going, determination. That's what it takes. And this is the only way that we're going to come out of this, is by somebody doing something heroic. And heroic might be financially this time, instead of the muscle of whatever. When we've gone to wars before, we've done this, done that, done the other, and the parents went to, the mothers would go make bombs or whatever, make airplanes. That's the type of stuff we're going to have to do. We're going to have to, again, think outside the box.
So
Yeah, go ahead, Robert.
Betsy's had her hand up for a while.
All right, Betsy, you're going to be the last question.
Well, Fred was waving his hand. I don't think he
Oh.
knew how to put his blue hand up. So
You-
please let
Okay.
him go. But I have a quick one. I'm following up on something that Leon said that I heard Josh say that I was really surprised and curious about, which is tolls on the bridges. Can you give us a little bit more on how you think that would and could work? And then I'd like to hear what the other two candidates have to say about that. But don't
Yeah.
forget Fred.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you, Betsy. So that's one of my economic stimulus plans for the Cape is, we are now taking ownership as the state of Massachusetts over those bridges away from Army Corps of Engineers. That has been formally announced. Once it's in the state's hands, it's my plan to work on the acquisition of that here to the Cape. To put us in charge of that, which would then allow us to put tolls on those bridges, and then essentially, reap the benefits of that up to about $10 million a year just between Labor Day, Memorial Day, and Labor Day alone. That's $10 million in revenue that's projected right there, having $3 tolls with resident exemptions and people who come to the Cape to work, they would be exempt as well. It would only be for people coming to visit the Cape who do not live here, who do not have residences here or work here. So yeah, and then what I would like to do is, again, appropriate those funds, which start at about $10 million is what annually within that 6-month frame is what I have worked out mathematically. And then that would go into supplementing other areas of need here in the Cape that we can't necessarily get right away through the Commonwealth. So, you know, between that, between, you know, the university idea I have for economic plan, I think, and also increased taxation on investment properties. I think that can really be a boon for us here, you know, and I see that as being a very realistic possibility in the near future for all those things.
Yep, on putting tolls on the bridges.
I think that's a great idea. I think, and yes, having it for residents, it doesn't cost them. I mean, yes, I think it's an awesome idea, because, you know, I have a problem with, you know, Cape Cod is a tourist destination. It's a destination. We are Florida. We are Vegas. And, you know, I go and I went down the highway today, and our roads, there's grass needs to be cut. But if you go up to Mass Pike, you're going to see a lot of workers up there on Mass Pike. We should be getting some of these workers down here. We have 4 depots, state depots, and the state's not delegating it in the right spot. Especially in the summer, you would make sure we got to make sure that the workers would come down here and, hey, we got to take care of this. So yes, I would definitely recommend getting, you know, tolls that can regenerate more money. I think we also, how about with thinking outside the box? I mean, we're making a lot of money off of lottery. I mean, I think we should be able to get some monies to go to different spots instead of what have you. I mean, I just think, you know, we got to think outside the box. That's really what I believe.
And Jim?
I don't think right now I'd support tolls. I'd have to see the much more comprehensive package. Is it part of something else? Is this being used to fund, just go to a general fund? Is there a specific thing for it? Like, I think it was the meals tax that I think John Mahoney, when he was running for state senate, would talk about a lot, and Plymouth being a huge success for them because they earmarked the money to go to a specific fund. And for that, it was to build a town hall, and they were able to build a town hall with money, which the studies showed were mostly from out of Plymouth people, you know, there for tourist reasons. So I guess we'd have to find out what is that toll is going to be specifically for, and, you know, what is, you know, what's the bigger package that it's part of.
Fred, you out there?
Fred?
Hey, Fred.
Hey, thank you guys. It's really been a wonderful evening. No, I just wanted to say more about climate change, and Cape Cod is ground zero for climate change. It's probably the #1 problem that we have to face here. It has all to do with tourism, our #1 industry, has all to do with property and property evaluations and pollution and all the environment. So maybe we can have, maybe CIDC can have just a climate change interview with these candidates.
Okay.
We can definitely look into that. Thank you. Any other hands, Robin? I don't
I don't see any more hands, Steve.
Okay, so here's what I'd like to do is for our 3 candidates, if you could take, you know, minute and a half, 2 minutes as sort of a closing to this. And Kip, we will start with you.
Steve, can I just say something first before he does that? Anybody who's interested in the comments that were in the comment box, in the
Thank you.
chat box, if you go on to the bottom right-hand corner of the chat box, there's 3 little dots, and you can save the chat, and that you can, and it'll save onto your computer. So if you'd like to see what was discussed within the chat box, that's a way to save it. Might be good for the candidates to do that, so you can see what people are talking about.
Great heads up. Yeah.
There you go.
Thank you.
Great. Kip, wrap it up on your end.
Okay. Well, first of all, thank you very much for. I've never done anything like this, and I am a newbie. And even though I'm a newbie, my passion is very high. And being the second district representative would just be. I want to be the first African American man to represent Barnstable, second Barnstable district, and I think with the know-how of the former incumbent of Demetrius Atzis helping me out, and also the people of second district, we can do big things even in this tough situation. I will definitely work with the opioid abuse that's going on. It's still rampant. We still have to keep working on that hard. You know, the Black Lives Matter. Listen, if you're caring and if you're not a voter, we need you to vote. We need everybody to vote. It's so important in this time at this time. And I just believe that, you know, we have to all stick together. This is not about me. It's about us. It's about we. And I learned quite a bit from both candidates today, and I'm very enthused with what I heard from them. And we all have to stick together. And I'm excited going forward. And I look forward to doing this again.
Great. Thank you, Kip. We really appreciate it. Jim.
Great. Everybody, thank you for having me here tonight. It's been great to Zoom with everybody, kind of get to see and hear from you. Looking forward to hearing a lot more from you going down the road. And Josh and Kip, I'm looking forward to being on the ticket with you guys as Democrats. Actually real fired up for that. My thing is just simply put, folks, for 20 years, this seat has been a red seat. We have a grand opportunity to flip this thing. The blue wave is coming. We're going to be able to do it in our district. The most important thing that we can do is be there for constituent services for our constituency. I've done it since I first started with Ed Markey back in '95 doing constituent services. As a labor union, I do it now in my constituency of working families. It's nurses, it's accountants, it's custodians, it's doctors. It's exactly who we are in our community. Having served them for the last 20 years, now let's take it to the next level. I'm not doing this as some sort of, you know, ego grab or sign off on a long career trying to get a pension. I'm doing this because I think times like this call for it. And if you folks are there with me, I'm ready to be there with you and make sure our democratic voices are heard. I like to say it, it's kind of the catchphrase, but that I make you one promise and I'll keep it. At 6'7", they'll see me on Beacon Hill, but they'll hear you. And trust me, I'm in the Zoom, so it's tough to see that I'm 6'7", but I am, so. Just play along with that. But no, thanks, gang, for the time tonight. Looking forward to meeting you all as we go forward.
Thank you, Jim. Josh, you got the final word on this.
Thank you, Steve. Well, I want to thank the other two candidates as well. Kip, great to hear from you, as well as Jim. Got to talk to you a little bit the other day as well. I look forward to speaking to both of you along the trail here. It's very enlightening. It's very heartening to have you know, such a strong alliance and such wonderful people to work with through this campaign cycle. Steve, I want to thank you, the CIDC, Robin, Sandy, everybody, everyone who attended tonight. I appreciate you giving us the time and ear, some questions. And listen, the reality of this is that, you know, we all have platforms, we all have agendas that we're looking to fulfill. We have things we want to do. We also have to listen to the community and listen to the constituents, because you are the ones that we are working with to represent. It's your voices that we are becoming a conduit for up on Beacon Hill. We are going to have agreements, and we're also going to have disagreements. That's why we have these events. That's why we have these debates. This is really important. And it's good to hear from what people's points of view are on hot button topics, as well as things that, you know, maybe we don't have as much knowledge about yet. It's things that we want to be a little bit more educated on. So I use this whole experience tonight, and ones moving forward, ones in the past, as very strong informational sessions. I like to aggregate the information and then do the research on it. And I want to always make sure and promise you that I will do so to come back with the best answer. My heart, my gut, and I also use pragmatism and logic, which is extremely important and a lost art in this day and age. So with that said, thank you all very much. I can't wait to be on the ballot. I can't wait to have the support of all of you, to work with all of you, to listen to all of you. And yeah, I look forward to flipping the first Barnstable Blue this year. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Josh. Thank you, Kip. Thank you, Jim. Thank you, everybody that joined us tonight. I'm going to stop the recording, but I'm not going to close the room yet.